Let's get started. Thank you all for coming. This is part of the first exhibit of the season for the Diane Kid Gallery. And I want to welcome Michael Flechtner here. And I'm just going to do a couple of housekeeping things, and then the mayor, Tiffin's going to introduce him. For those of you who may be TU students, which hey, maybe some of them are right here, I do have a sign up for co-curricular credit up here after the chat. And the opening reception for the exhibit is tomorrow night in the gallery, which is in the Hayes Center for the Arts, across the street, from 5:30 to 7. And Michael will be there to chat with everyone, as well as great food and all that good stuff. And if you don't get a chance to go to the opening reception, the normal gallery hours are Monday through Thursday from 10 to 3. Although I am trying to have some weekend hours, so check the gallery website in case you wanted to come over the weekends during the run of the exhibit. The exhibit is on until October 10th. And then without further ado, Mayor Mons.
All right, I guess I get the pleasure of introducing Mike here this evening, and I want to apologize to Mike before I start. I have to leave early this evening, about 6 o'clock, due to another commitment. There's just not enough of me to go around for all of these events, but I do appreciate the opportunity to be here. We're proud of a native Tiffinite that has had such great success. When I first last year actually declared Mike Flechtner Day here in Tiffin, I had no idea who Mike was, but I had known the stamp. I had seen the stamp, and it was kind of neat to finally see the creator of it, and I had no idea that Mike was the gentleman that had come up with the design and put all the hard work into it. And little did I know that he grew up and was born and raised right here in Tiffin, Ohio. So it's great to see that happening for a native Tiffinite. He acts like he's surprised. But anyways, I figured the best way to get across some of the accomplishments of Mike and introduce him is to actually read the proclamation that I issued last year declaring Mike Flechtner Day here in Tiffin. And it stated, whereas Mike Flechtner is well known for his neon artistry in Los Angeles and Glendale, California, and his hometown in Tiffin, Ohio, and whereas Mike is a 1970 graduate of Tiffin Columbian High School, there I'm dating you, whereas in neon, Mike works with fire and colored light has always been about celebration. He creatively designed the Neon Celebrate stamp in the year 2011, and whereas we too are glad that your parents did not hinder you from your experiments with electricity, fire, bottles, etc., and whereas today you are a well-known, accomplished artist whose origin started here in Tiffin, and we welcome you back home. Therefore, I, Aaron D. Mons, Mayor of the City of Tiffin, Ohio, do hereby proclaim today, Monday, October 22nd, as Mike Flechtner Day, and encourage all citizens of Tiffin to honor him and to reflect his donation of creative and artwork that will be displayed in Tiffin Columbian Auditorium that day for all to enjoy. So we were proud, so Mike Flechtner Day coming up on October 22nd. Mark your calendars. Hopefully we have a great celebration. It'll probably be a spontaneous parade in the downtown core. If not, it's not my fault. Right. But no, I think it's great that, and the proclamation kind of reflects that. It was great that your parents, I guess, allowed you to experiment with all those dangerous things. I know mine would have probably locked me in the room and grounded me if I was playing around with neon and electricity and all the things that you were doing. So it's great that your parents, I guess, allowed you to experiment with your creativity and to become what you have today. So without further ado, Mike Flechtner.
And I still have all my eyes, appendages. Didn't blow anything up. So what I'm going to do tonight is show you a little bit of what I do, and of course tomorrow night you'll get a chance to see the artwork in person. So I'm going to start this up. Nobody's told you this. I got interested in neon because of the neon that I encountered here in Tiffin, Ohio growing up. Ritz Theater used to have this great marquee with all this animated neon. The Tiffin Drive-In, which is now the Field of Dreams, was another tremendous display of neon. I really enjoyed. And one of the signs that I really had access to was the sign in the Marinas candy store, where I could just walk up and I could just look at the sign, I could see all the little glowing stuff like that. So, those were like my early influences. And I'm just always fascinated with high voltage, fire, glass, explosives. And I've been fortunate to be able to continue doing what I'm doing. The one other thing I'd like to do before I dive in is I'd really like to thank Tiffin University and Lee Fernside for inviting me to do this exhibit. And also all the people that have donated to bringing Prodigal Son to Tiffin, Ohio. And I really wanted to do this, but it was kind of an undertaking. But we've managed, and I feel very, very grateful for all the people that have contributed to getting my art here and hopefully to getting my art back, unless you buy it all. So there we go. All right, so see, this is the art and craft of bending. Almost all neon starts with a straight tube, 4 foot, 5 foot long, and the glass has to be heated up to 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I'm obviously in some sort of device here, and I'm heating that glass up. See it starting to bend. And you can see I'm doing this in my bare hand. There's no gloves. Basically, I'm keeping my hand away from any of the hot glass because I don't want to burn myself. And I'm basically bending on a pattern that's made out of this fireproof material. There I'm really concentrating. I'm really focused, really concentrating. I'm not sure what I'm doing. But that's my studio, and that's my main workbench. You can see all that stuff behind me. I'm putting marks on the glass because you have to heat a certain amount of glass in order to make certain kinds of bends. And so those marks have to be really accurate. So when I make a bend, it actually follows the pattern and doesn't go off in some other place. Oh, I was going to tell you, I use 5-point crossfires. So here I am, the crossfire. This is for all the tight bends that I'm doing. And again, they've got to get the glass up to 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see the glass starting to glow. And this is all by feel. It's almost all hand-eye. And so I really have to be able to, that was the other reason you don't wear gloves, because you can't feel the glass, through that sort of thing. So you have to really be able to feel things. There you can see I'm really concentrating. That's the thing when you're in the fire and you've got the glass hot. You can't be anything else going on in your mind. You just have to be, with that 1.5 inches of glass. And you can see something flying out the side of my head. It's a big neon bat ray. This is a double back bend. I've made the bend, and whenever you bend a piece of glass that's hot, it tends to collapse, and so you reinflate it. And so you'll see a little thing hanging around my neck and in my mouth. That's a little blow hose, and I use that to reinflate these bends after I've made them to make sure that the circumference is consistent throughout the bend. I'm on something called a ribbon burner. This is a 16-inch ribbon burner, and this is for any sort of long heats that I'm trying to make, any sort of curves, gradual curves. And I'm taking the glass and I'm going back and forth like that, getting it hot. And you learn all kinds of crazy moves, because if your arm goes over that fire, it burns all the hair off your arm, it stinks up the place. And you can see I'm following this pattern. I'm basically doing a repair. I'm doing some guy's, it's like some sort of chef's jacket that I'm working on. And that just shows you, you can see the lettering there is backwards because it all has to be bent. It all has to be bent backwards. Don't ask me why. So I'm back in the crossfire, making another bend. There I'm going up in the position, and as soon as where I want to be, I'll go ahead and inflate that, and then that will return to the consistent diameter going through the bend. Back to the pattern, make sure everything matches. Back in the ribbon burner, making another gradual curve. You can see more of my studio, and that's the piece. That's the piece that I gave to Tiffin Columbian about a year or so ago, and when the mayor presented my own special day. And I'm getting ready to make a transition of levels, and so you see that I have the glass up on a little wooden block. It gives you a little better view of it. Because when you're doing things, basically it's just one continuous tube, and so you can't stop, put in a T and go off in some other direction. It's all one continuous tube. And there's a detail of the little blow hose that I use, plugs into the end of the tubing so I can keep things inflated. I think I'm getting ready to do a 90-degree turn. So I'm back in the crossfire, heating the glass up. There I'm at 90 degrees, and I go ahead and inflate it at that point. And then I check that 90 degrees with that little plastic block. Alan, I told you about that block. That's what I use. And now I'm getting ready to fuse the glass. I have 2 pieces bent up, and I'm getting ready to attach one piece to another piece. And you see a tiny little mark right there. I'm going to cut along that mark, and I'm going to fuse it right to that other piece of glass. There I'm cutting the glass, and the way you're able to cut glass is basically you interrupt the surface tension of the glass, and you just use a little file, and you just score the glass a little bit, and then snap it, and it just breaks off very cleanly every time. So, oh yeah, there I am. I'm really focused. I'm getting ready to weld things together, but you can see that the jacket's finally coming together, for this chef, and I'm making him a purple jacket. And there I am with my little T500 T-torch, and I'm in there, I'm welding the 2 pieces of glass together. And I can rotate that torch, and I get the glass really hot, so it becomes very homogeneous, and I kind of work it in and out like I'm kneading clay until things become sealed very, very well. Yeah, look at that. I look very calm. Now I'm welding on an electrode. Every neon tube usually has 2 electrodes on it, so I'm welding one of the electrodes. And the electrodes are the things that allow us to put electricity inside of the tubing once it's together. And this particular electrode, this kind of electrode, allows me also to connect the neon tube to the bombarding manifold. So there I am getting the glass hot. And I'm basically rotating that little torch. And I'm putting the other electrode on, the non-tubulated electrode. Now I'm blowing a bubble. This tube's going to have a drop of mercury in it, and you can't have mercury in the tube while you're processing it because the tube will never get hot enough, and so the mercury has to stay outside of the tube during the bombarding process. So I'm blowing a little bubble there. Look at the concentration. There I'm injecting mercury, and if you follow down, right there, that's where the mercury ends up, and it stays in there during the bombarding process. If it gets in there, it never gets hot enough, the tubing gets stained, and it just causes all kinds of problems, so it has to stay out. Now I'm attaching the unit to the bombarding manifold using the hand torch again. I'm putting in mica. Mica is a real deterrent for electricity, like jumping little gaps and stuff if I happen to get the vacuum or the voltage too high. Oh, this other thing. See that little clip on there? That's my thermometer. That tells me how hot the glass is getting. When you process a neon tube, basically you have to sterilize the inside of the tube, and you do that by having a vacuum applied to it while heating the tube. And so I'll get the glass tubing up to about Fahrenheit 451, and that will eliminate any sort of organic material or water vapor that might have gotten in there during the manufacturing process. Got to get that stuff out because we're going to be putting an inert gas in there. This is my other thermometer, and this is my infrared thermometer, and I use 2 of them to kind of make sure I'm where I want to be heat-wise, because temperature, getting the right temperature is very important. There's my arm. You can see half the hair has been burned off. And basically, I'm pulling on this rope, and it controls how much voltage goes through the tube while I'm bombarding. That's my bombarding manifold, and on my manifold, I've got 3 different kinds of gas. I use krypton gas, and it's not green. Argon gas, which is pale lavender, but if you put a drop of mercury in it, it becomes a kind of electric blue, and neon gas, which is the red-orange color that you always see with open signs. And I've been bombarding. You can see I've got the vacuum up, and I got the temperature around 130 degrees centigrade. And see, there's the tube being bombarded. So I've sucked a bunch of air out of it, enough that the tube will light by putting 18,000 volts through it, and that's heating the glass. So I want to heat the glass, but I also want to get the electrodes glowing cherry red, so it activates an emitter coating that's inside of the tubes that gathers up any sort of impurity that gets imparted into the tube during the life of it. And it looks like I'm I don't know what that part is. I'm basically checking the vacuum pressure there. And I'm almost ready to, the tube's hot enough. It shouldn't be glowing now. The tube's hot enough. I've got the electrodes hot. And when you weren't looking, I backfilled the tube with argon gas. And so when it was kind of a pale green, now it's purple. That's the color that it's going to turn out to be. So the bombarding process is over. I filled it, and next thing I'll do is, oh yeah, where'd that cat come from? The next thing I'll do is it's called tipping off, and basically what I do is I heat that real narrow tube that you saw me blowing a bubble in, and because even though the tube is chock full of argon gas, the gas is in there, but it's still below atmospheric pressure, so there's still a vacuum. And so as I heat the tubulation, the glass collapses on itself and seals, and that way I'm able to disconnect without losing the gas. This is my friend Linda's cat. I don't know if this is Frito or Cheeto, but it's one of them. She stuck that in there to kind of throw me off the first time I ever gave this slide thing. All right, in the beginning. So in graduate school, not in graduate school, undergraduate school, I had no idea that anybody was using neon as an artistic medium. Typically, signs, advertising, kind of like decoration, pool halls, strip clubs, whatever you have. So I didn't really think about it. And then when I was at Columbus College of Art and Design, this artist named Stephen Antonakis came and did a slide lecture. And this guy's making art out of neon tubing. And it was like, lights went on for me. So I designed a piece, did this design, took it to a glass bender. The glass bender bent it all up for me. I brought it back to school. I hung it up, and everybody said, "Oh, Michael Flechtner, you're a great artist." And I felt really weird about that because I hadn't really done anything other than do the drawing. I had no connection to it. So this piece I designed like in 1980, probably 1980. It's called Rape of the Lock, and it's after the title of an epic poem by Alexander Pope by the same name, The Rape of the Lock. This is a piece I did in graduate school, same thing. I didn't know how to do neon. I bent this guy up. I did the drawing, took it to a glass bender. Glass bender bent it up. This guy's about 6 feet tall. Brought it back to school, lit it up. Everybody's going, "Oh, Michael Flechtner, you're a great artist." And I didn't do this. But the story behind this piece, I call it the Highway Kachina. And what I would do is I would take this guy out on the highway between 11 and 12 at night, north of Wichita, Kansas on I-35. And I'd find the darkest area away from buildings, farms, any sort of other light. And I'd always take a gas-powered generator, and I'd set it up next to the I-35 northbound, and I'd run it for an hour. And I would just record what the traffic would do as it went driving by. See brake lights go on, you see people go up to the next turn around in Cloverleaf, come back to take a slow cruise by. It was amazing what it did. About 2 years ago, and this was in 1984, we were still in the middle of the Cold War, Wichita, Kansas, where we had Boeing, we had lots of defense contractors out there, and so people were just really wiggy. But I don't want to go into that too much. So anyway, about 2 years ago, I'm talking with my daughter, and she's showing a new friend my portfolio of images, and she brings this one up, and the guy that she's talking to, his face went white, broke out in a sweat, and he said, "I've seen that." He saw it when he was 8 years old. His father was a repo man, and they were driving north on I-35, and saw the Highway Kachina, and so I took credit for his entire success as like a comic book critic or something like that. I figured that's the least I could do. So anyway, this weird thing kept happening. I do these designs and I'd get all this acclaim, but I hadn't actually learned how to bend the glass. So I just felt, I felt really weird about that. So after I got out of the graduate school, I found a guy in Kansas who taught me how to bend glass, and then I started feeling a little bit better. It took about 6 weeks to learn the basics, and the thing with glass bending is you just have to keep practicing. That was in like 1984, 1985. Of course, it's 2013, so I've had lots of practice. So these are some of my small works. This is called flash camera, and it's the same size as the camera that guy's holding right there. And it's wearable, it's battery powered. And I actually, this is in Katy Perry's collection. She just bought this about 2 months ago, so she buys my work. This piece is called Radiation. Sharks swimming through the radio waves. You know, if you look at real carefully at the knobs, you see that they spell out God. I have no idea why. It's just how I work. But the reason I started going into more sculptural work with neon versus signage and stuff is one day I took a wrong turn. I was in neon school and I took a wrong turn, and I discovered that I could go 3 dimensions. I wasn't working flat, so I was no longer restricted to just doing like words and things like that. And so, having a sculptural background, it's very easy for me to start visualizing and being able to construct these kinds of works. This piece is called No Way. Flying fish. I'm fascinated with fish and aircraft, and a flying fish is like the best of both of those worlds. This piece is called Dinner. This fish it's called a coelacanth, and this is a smaller version. This one's probably about 18 inches long, and then the smaller fish in size, probably about 6 inches long, made out of 5mm glass. I think I made this piece in '88. This piece is in the exhibit. This is called This is my Goodwill Ambassador. And I was invited to be in an exhibit called Traveling Light, and the criteria for traveling light, and this was before 911, the towers going down in New York. We were building art that would fit inside of carry-on luggage, and then we would haul it off to the art exhibit, as our carry-on luggage. And so I figured, well, I'll just build a piece into a piece of carry-on luggage. And because the first stop for the exhibit was in Tokyo, Japan, I decided, well, I'll do the Japanese flag, and then I'll add a little bit to it. I'll put the little smiley face. And so this is, I was trying to get on the good side. This piece is called Glow Plug, and I like those. I really like those really simple images, especially the smiley face, and here's the face that you get if you stick like a knife inside an electrical socket. You get that look. Glow Plug basically is just a large plug, that you plug into an outlet somewhere. But this is out of scale, so it's not as easily recognizable. This piece is called Dinosaur Head. I sold it a couple of years ago. I wanted to make movable neon, and so I designed this piece that's completely 3-dimensional. And when you walk up to it, it has a little sensor, and basically the jaw will start going like that until you walk away from it. And I've seen people walk up to this, and because you don't know it's going to happen, and it starts moving, people don't expect it to move. I've seen people just jump straight up in the air from it. I missed this piece. I made this in like 1988. This piece is called Pop Shark. Because I like playing with words, Pop Tart, Pop Shark. The toaster here is 3 feet by 3 feet by 4 feet. The shark's 5 feet long. And the whole piece set up is 14 feet tall. And what happens is the handles for the toaster go up, and then the shark lights, one shark lights sequentially, and so it looks like a shark being popped out of a toaster. I think I can show you this. Nope. Nope. Try one more. Let me try one more try. Cool music, eh? Yeah, it's a very early piece. You can see that the sharks are completely 3-dimensional. Each one has a transformer inside it. I don't know who this guy is, but this gives you an idea of the scale of the piece. I was going to bring this, but your ceilings weren't high enough. All right, so sharks have been a big theme that I visit over and over again. This piece is called Sea Goat, and this shark is 7 feet long, and has a number of things inside. It's I consider it an autobiographical piece, and so you see that there's a hand. It's a real pale hand back in the tail section, and if you look real close, you see like half of a gold crescent. That represents the gold watch that my parents gave me when I was 21. And then there's a van, that's the next thing. And every object inside the shark's completely three-dimensional. And that's the van that got me from Columbus, Ohio to Wichita, Kansas. No, that's the van that got me from Wichita, Kansas to Los Angeles. And then I got a job when I moved to LA in a neon shop, and I made that, one of the first things I bought with my ill-gotten gains from glass bending was a boom box. And so the boom box is in there. And then in the head of the shark, there's a three-dimensional airplane, because I like aircraft as well. And the shark's getting ready to eat a license plate. Because like every movie I ever saw about sharks, they cut a shark's stomach open, there's tennis shoes come out, tin cans. I mean, that's why I call it sea goat, because the shark just bumps into things. It'll taste it. If it's edible, it'll eat it. If it's not, it'll swallow it anyway. So I mean, sharks aren't out there just trying to kill people or anything like that. They're just doing what they do. And my shark's getting ready to eat a license plate. Can anybody read the numbers? Come on, I know somebody's got it. Oh no, I ate one too? All right, sorry. This is a belly view of it. The other thing that happens is I build a little audio control inside of the boom box. So, and there's an actual radio somewhere in the piece. And what the audio control does is it causes the different speaker rings to react to bass and treble. But also the eyes and the mouth of the shark also react to that as well. This piece is called Hologorilla, because I like playing with words. Hologram, gorilla, hologorilla. It's about 10 feet long, and I don't have any animation shots of it, but basically you walk up to this piece and a single gorilla lights and then starts kind of randomly going back and forth, and then it stops, and then it starts wiping back and forth, and it speeds up, it slows down, it does any number of things until the person steps away from the piece, and then it goes silent again. This piece is called Touch and Go. I was fascinated with the space shuttle, still I am. And I was right in the middle of making this. Piece when the Challenger blew up. I'm halfway through my shuttle fleet, and I'm watching TV while I'm bending, because that was my thing. And the shuttle blew up, and I was a little bit concerned that I was going to have problems with mine. I ended up bending up 14 scale models of the space shuttle. They're like this big. And I hung them and I light them sequentially, so it looks like one shuttle coming in, lowering its landing gear, engines refiring, and doing a touch and go. The real shuttle, and NASA engineers have told me this, the real shuttle does not do touch and go. Mine does. It's another shot of it. Bye, Mayor. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you.
I do have a little bit of animation I'll show you with this thing. You see the different things going on. You see the wheels are completely down now. You see the blue flames are getting longer and longer. Wheels are going back up. Longer flames, longer flames. The cockpit windows I made out of radioactive glass. I just thought that would be a good thing. So when it lights, this is what it looks like. It's 28 feet long once it's installed. And if you're lucky enough, when the piece is low enough where you can just stand right next to it and it comes like that, you see it coming in and going like that, you get the distinct impression of flight. I'm trying to get one of the museums in Los Angeles interested in this, because they have the Endeavor now, and so I think this would be a great addition. All right, enough of that shuttle. I was making all these three-dimensional pieces, and they were taking up so much room in my studio. I decided to start making two-dimensional pieces, and I've always been fascinated with Japanese culture. I was born in the year of the rabbit. I like fire, so I came up with this composition. This rabbit is always named Sorry. No matter how it's shown up in my work, his name's always Sorry. I don't know why, but that's who he is. And the Japanese characters there spell out kimchi, and kimchi is this spicy pickled cabbage that the Koreans are really fond of. I am too, because it's just great stuff. So I was just playing around, But these pieces are kind of like, they're puzzles. They're kind of visual puzzles like Rebus. So you got this flame coming out of this hole, you got this rabbit, and you've got this reference to a very hot, spicy pickled condiment. Number 22 is it's my lucky number, and I wanted to use it in a piece of art. And I also like playing with words, and so I kept thinking about the word curiosity, and I thought, oh, what about curiosity? Because I've always liked the word curio. So I put together this piece, and you see some arrows. You see things in my work, the themes will carry through, and this is just kind of a goofy piece I was working on one day. Oh, and the skull flashes on and off. This piece is called Hot Dog. My father was a truck driver out of Green Springs, Ohio, and he was killed in 1978 in a bad truck accident on one of these highways out here. It was pretty nasty. But anyway, my father's handle as a truck driver was Hot Dog. And and he liked hot dogs. And so I had this little plastic cat in my studio one day. It's called a Monike Neko. And it's basically this little cat you'll see in Asian restaurants, and they bake for prosperity. And so I have mine baking for a hot dog, because cats, dogs. And if you notice, there's a squeeze bottle of ketchup, squeeze bottle of mustard. There's the Greek letter A for alpha, and the omega, because mustard and ketchup with a good hot dog is the alpha and omega. And if you look at the streams of ketchup and mustard, you'll see that they're basically twin-facing profiles. And I can't tell you why. But also, my father's two favorite holidays were Christmas and Easter. So behind the red of the ketchup is a green tube, and then behind the yellow mustard, of course, it doesn't reproduce here very well, it's purple. So Easter and Christmas were both represented. And of course, up in the hot dog is in the Japanese phonetic spelling for hot dog. And then the three crosses up at the top represent my father's three boys, myself, my older brother, and my younger brother, who are also represented in the exhibit. There was a painting that was done by Rene Magritte years and years ago. It was a painting of a pipe. And then below the painting, he wrote, "Ce n'est pas un pipe," which means this is not a pipe. And he was during the Dada, the Dada movement. And what he was saying is a painting of a pipe is not a pipe, which at the time was just rather profound. And so I was thinking, well, I want to do something like that. So I decided to make a neon sign that says, this is not a neon sign. Not as cool as Magritte, mind you. I had this, started drawing one day, and this image came up, and I thought there was only going to be one piece, but then I realized this is the see no evil. And this guy's got his hand over his eyes, but he's kind of like cheating. You can kind of like look between his fingers. And I was thinking about Nazi Germany, and how a lot of the German population were unaware of the atrocities and things were going on. They turned, they looked the other way, or they claimed that they didn't really see what was going on. So I thought, well, if I did see no evil, I got to do hear no evil. So I did this piece called Cupid's Price, because when you're in love, you don't listen to anybody. You just do whatever you want to. And it has a little bit to do with the love of money, because you can also love money. That's represented by the eye in the pyramid up there. And of course, Cupid's arrows right through his ears, and he's kind of like genuflecting. He's kind of in a beatific state. And so this is Cupid's Price. So hear no evil. And then you have to have speak no evil. And when we were growing up, we'd be sitting at the dinner table, mouthful of food. We start talking, and our parents would say, "Don't speak with your mouth full." And so speak no evil, don't speak with your mouth full. So the real, so a real MF, the MF actually stands for mouthful. But a lot of people debated me on that. It actually means a real Michael Flechtner, because this actually is, one of my portraits. So the other thing is, when I was a kid, I experimented a lot with electricity. It led me into neon. And up the top is a very, very simple transistor radio circuit, because I just love electronic schematics, and so it showed up in this piece. I foray into quasi-religious art. This is my carrot and stick crucifix. Little carrot. You don't pay attention, I'm going to hit you with a stick. just an idea popped up there one day. This piece is called Joko, and this is the piece I donated to Tiffin, Columbian. I think this is about birth trauma. Something very big going through a little funnel, shot out the other end. No telling what a baby experiences going through the birth canal. But I wasn't aware of it when I was drawing it. I just started drawing and I interpreted it later. I love horseshoe magnets. I love the form of them. I love what you can do with them. I discovered that if you take them on the old days, if you take a magnet to a color TV screen, you pull all the color up in one corner. I got in so much trouble with my parents ruining a TV doing that. So magnetism, electrons, you got to be really careful. And I like German words, and so I thought, well, yeah, magnets in certain situations are forbidden or verboten. And especially if you get around a credit card with a magnet, it's going to pretty much wipe all the information off of it. So I made this piece. And then there's another face. See the little face up here? Kind of the frowny face. I wiped out my credit card. This piece is called Enigma, and it's about the one Apollo space capsule that caught on fire during tests, and three of the astronauts perished in it. And of course, the Apollo mission was going to the moon. So we got the moon up there. See the little rabbit? Rabbit showed up again. That's sorry. It's trying to blow out that fuse on that question mark that goes down to that cartoon bomb. See that cartoon bomb? So, we have the Eye of Osiris here, the Egyptian god of the underworld. We have the arrows headed for the moon. We have the arrows coming back from the moon. And the reason there's a rabbit in the moon is when I was in Japan doing something, they told me, they said, well, when we look at the moon, we don't see a man. We see two rabbits making rice flour. And I thought, two rabbits making rice flour? I said, come on. I walked out and I'm looking at the same moon I've always been looking at, and there they are, two rabbits, they're making rice flour. And that rice flour is called mochi, and that's what the characters up there spell, mochi. And of course, the red hot, on Lucky 13, it wasn't Apollo 13 that burned up, but the capsule was red hot, and we lost, three very brave men. And then I was doing bones and skulls at the time, so the femurs of the three astronauts showed up in this piece, is that triangle in the middle. Yeah, there's no depth to my work. This piece is called Where'd They Go? I lost my grandmother, my nephew, and my father, when I was pretty young, and also my mother's cat. I wasn't as attached to the cat as the other people, but to my grandmother really supported me in the arts. When I was a kid, she always let me into her junk drawer, and with rubber bands, matches, pulleys, string, that sort of thing. And so she always encouraged that. And so that's her with the art. My nephew fell off a cliff and was killed in Texas. And his younger brother was with him, and when Ned went over the cliff, he just said, "Oh shit." That was his last words. And so I've been fascinated with people's last words ever since. And then my father, I had kind of a problematic relationship, or an oppositional relationship with my father. So you see the word dad, D-A-D, but one of the D's are reversed. And then the cat, of course, this piece is animated, and so the tears are actually dripping down from the cat. The cat's crying. Of course, the cat was dead. Moose, my mother's favorite cat. And so the answer to where they go is they went away. And Jonathan Winter's son bought this piece. He said, you wouldn't ever sell a piece like that, would you? And I said, yeah. I made it, I processed whatever I was processing, and it was time to go. This piece is called Hovercat. How are we doing for time? All right. Yeah, because all these things you can see, almost all these pieces you'll be able to see in the exhibit. Hovercat basically is about the changing nature of cats. How you can be petting your cat and the cat's like really digging it. Oh, that feels so good. But you go too far, it's like dings on you. And so you see this black cat, and he's got you see the question mark motif in his tail. So this is about that. I can go into detail, but we don't have all that much time. This is called Bat, Man. This is my transmigrational self-portrait. has to do with my belief that I've lived other lives as other creatures. This piece is called Cat and Mouse. It's from a time when I swore I would never use a computer mouse because I just thought that was so cheating. But years later, I became fascinated with my my computer mouse. So basically, the birds are flying around. The cat's flicking his tail. He's playing with the mouse, and he's fallen in love with his image on the computer screen, fading in and out. Probably most of you are familiar with Godzilla. Godzilla goes, he destroys every city he walks into. I was aware of that, but I heard about this movie called Death Takes a Holiday, and I decided, well, what if Godzilla went sightseeing instead of marauding? What if he went to Paris, for example, and didn't tear everything down? So he's got his Nikon camera on, but you can see his back's still glowing. It's just like, don't mess with him. Hopefully none of the French waiters are giving him any sort of grief. But the other motif, I was kind of working with an Asian motif, so you see the Asian writing. Basically it says, Gojira no Kyuka, which means Godzilla's on a holiday. It's called Inbound. It's about flying saucers. I don't believe in them. Poindexter. I always liked this. Anybody read Mad Magazine when you were a kid? Used to see this optical illusion. I still want to make one, but you can make them in neon. That's kind of interesting. This piece is called Tora, Tora, Tora. After I got done with it, I realized it's about the attack of the killer bees that never came because the killer bees were wiped out by bee mites, and we're still having problems with bees. Krypton. I always liked this airplane shape, and there used to be an oil company called Kryptonite, but they used a different airplane, but I decided to do my own version of it. And this piece is animated, so those sections of letters light, based on how I've programmed it. So it says crypt, sometimes it says Krypton, and sometimes it says kryptonite. Krypton tonight. It's kind of like Wang Chung tonight. This piece is called, this is my Nopin sign. There's a little computer built into this thing, and basically anywhere between 2 seconds and 5 minutes would switch on, and the end would swing from one end to the other. And I'd keep this in my studio, and people would walk in and they'd go, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" And I'd say, "What did the sign say when you walked in?" And if it said nope, I said, "Sorry." But if it said open, I'd talk to him. This piece called Year of the Rabbit. I was born in the Year of the Rabbit. This piece is in our exhibit next door. Yeah, there's the rabbit. I was born in the Year of the Rabbit. So I figured out. And then when I looked in my grade school records, I read lots of books on rabbits. I had no idea. This is called the Bodhisattva self-portrait, and this is a piece of art that I made because I felt guilty about not praying. So I built a piece of art that would pray for me. This one prays in sign language, so it's very quiet. This is called None of Your Beeswax. See, another little bee shows up. This piece is also in the exhibit. Notice the little beeswax, honeycomb beeswax, and then the Tabasco sauce. Those bottles are this big, they're tiny. Public commissions. This is one of my largest commissions. It's over at Starbucks in Los Angeles. Those sharks and the dolphins up in the top, they're like 5 feet long. They're completely three-dimensional. Piece is a landmark, I'm telling you. It's another piece. I did this at Wittenberg University. It's called John Ken. It's basically the Japanese version of rock, paper, scissors. And you actually play this. You can go down there and push a button on the wall and it'll roll the symbols. And then you can just determine who's going to buy lunch, who's going to buy beer for the parties that weekend, or public office. It's about 14 feet by 14 feet, so it's huge. Kind of a side view shows you the little houses and Quonset huts. It's growing up here in northwestern Ohio. Quonset huts are like one of my favorite structures when I'll be driving out in the country to look at. A piece that I did called A Better Mousetrap. This is in Los Angeles. We're kind of running, are we? Yeah, there'll be more. There's more work to look at. This is a piece I did in the Tokyo subway. It's called Barimu. It's like 30 feet long, 8 feet tall. A piece I did for Mirror Lake Middle School in Anchorage, Alaska. It's called Canis rebus magnetum. See, I use that Latin stuff. Hold on. Kind of a close-up. Neon charms for Franklin Avenue. This is a 24-foot tall piece I did for Franklin Avenue in, not Columbus, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Outdoor piece. It's all the good luck symbols from at least 12 different cultures that lived in the neighborhood. 12 different cultures. So you want to open up the Q&A? So we're going to open up the Q&A if there's any Q&A.
Why
I like when I was a kid, we went to the we went to the Presbyterian Church, and I was fascinated with the sunlight coming through the stained glass windows. And there was a Tom and Jerry cartoon, and Tom and Jerry froze the kitchen floor. They ripped open the refrigerator and they froze the kitchen floor. And then they had this wheel of Jell-O inside the refrigerator that had different colors of Jell-O, and the lights would shine through it, and so it was like their little ice skating rink. So I've just always been fascinated by colored light and glass, and I grew up really close to the glass house, Tiffin Glass, and we'd go over and go through their rubbish pile, and there'd be these huge chunks of blue and red glass. It's like we find these huge jewels, and so there's always just been a fascination with that. Plus, interest in electricity and so on. You're probably wondering, am I going to keep making neon? Yes, more than likely. Yes, Lee.
Well, it seems like from how you talk that chance is a big part of your process. I'm curious how much of things are pre-planned versus, we talked about discovering you can make something 3D by bending something incorrectly.
Yeah.
Chance is part of the process.
Well, Alan and I were talking. Of course, we had a chance encounter today. But we were talking, and one of my main goals in becoming a glass bender was to be a very good technician. So the technician part, the technical part, I've become very proficient at, which allows me to go anywhere I want to with my ideas and stuff. And so a lot of things will just come in like a flash of inspiration. I'll just have an idea, like the space shuttle. I just saw it one day landing, and I thought, heck, my work's cut out for me now, because then I have to create the thing. But then there's sometimes when I'll have an idea, like I got the idea for the cat with the levitating the big tuna. And so I just drew it up like that. So, basically the idea, was given to me, full on. But a lot of times I'll just have the kernel of an idea. So I'll just have like one thing, like I was drawing the rabbit. And then I thought, well, maybe it needs a little flaming hole over here. Maybe I need this word down here. And so those things kind of happen automatically. Bat Comma Man was another one where I just started drawing. I had nothing in mind, but I just kept following the drawing. And if something didn't look right, I would erase it, and then keep drawing until something stuck, basically. And so I allow for that sort of thing. And along with that, when other people look at my work, they have different interpretations, and I'll hear interpretations of my work that I think better than what I intended, and I think that's a pretty cool thing, where people, they bring their own experience to the work, and they get things out of it that I had no idea, and that's shared, back to me, which I like that sort of interaction. Yes, sir.
People give you a lot of ideas, I'm sure.
Yeah, everybody gives me ideas.
But do you take their idea and I know you put your own mind to it?
If it's
make it the way that you want it instead of what, or they just give you an idea?
Sometimes a couple commissions that I've had, they'll say, listen, Michael, we really like what you do. Do whatever you want to, but we'd like to see this. We'd like to see a hawk. We'd like to see a naked body. We'd like to, and then I work with those elements. But if they just say, do whatever you want to, like when I started the bee piece, the None of Your Beeswax piece, and I was just going my own route. They just said, we just want a bee, and so I designed that piece, and they didn't like it. It's an incredible piece. They didn't like it. I was in shock. So I designed something much more, staid for them, and they were very happy with that. So if somebody gives me carte blanche, I just go. But if they give me a little bit of guidance, then I try to organize that information that they give me in a very personal way.
How about the stamp? How did that?
There's a stamp. I was approached by the United States Postal Service. They asked me if I'd be interested in coming up with designs for a postage stamp. And I thought, this is bizarre. He said the theme is celebrate, and he said you can use the word if you want to, but you don't have to. And so, I agonized for a couple of months trying to figure out, well, what to really symbolize the celebration. And finally, it's fireworks, I thought, because it's universal. Like anywhere in the world, you see fireworks going off. Somebody's celebrating something. And so we worked. I worked several ideas, but basically that's the one we ended up on. Tom?
Did the government end up with a sign?
Yes.
Still have it?
Yeah, they have the original. It's 3 foot by 4 foot, and it's in the National Stamp Art Archives in Arlington, Virginia. It's really cool.
Great job.
Thank you.
How long would one of your simpler pieces or works take as opposed to that great big work that you did at Starbucks?
Yeah, that took a couple months.
Is that all?
Yeah, that took a couple months to bend all that glass. I'm a pretty fast glass bender. What I've discovered is it takes more time to build the background, that it's going to go on, do all the wiring, that sort of thing. So the glass bending, this was a couple weeks of glass bending. Those things. It's all 15 mil glass. It was huge. So a piece can take me as long as a day, just doing the bending. And a couple pieces in the gallery are like that, a couple days. And then sometimes it's a week or so on the glass bending, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks just building, painting, drilling, wiring the thing that supports it all.
Do those letters and symbols, do they say something?
Yeah, this says Franklin Avenue.
Oh, okay, I was trying to figure that out. Okay.
Franklin. Yes, sir.
Are you working on anything right now?
What am I working on right now? No, I've been really focused on getting the prodigal son out here. So that's my focus. I had an idea when I was coming across the Great Plains, something to do with a cow, methane, lightning strikes. Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate yet, but I was thinking along those lines. And I go, no, I don't know if I should do that sort of art, but it's been sticking with me. I was doing a little drawings for it the other day, so it might become a piece, but it would be kind of like a neon extravaganza, green fumes, lightning strike, flames, rocket propelled. See, that's the thing. I'm not afraid to let really odd ideas, come into my head. I entertain sometimes seemingly odd ideas. Basically whatever strikes my fancy, and if I can do it. If I can find a way to do it, I do it. Yes?
How much of your work is commission work and how much is just your own?
I'd say 90% of it just kind of my own. There has been commission work, and but typically I just get the urge to make something, and I'll make it. Nothing really. I don't let anything stop me.
How much does it cost to make a simple, like the bee in materials? How much does it cost you to make something like that?
Oh my God, maybe the transformers were probably the most expensive part, so maybe $100 in transformers. But the glass, just the materials alone, the glass was probably about 10 or 15 bucks. But it's real labor intensive. It's all hand-eye coordination, heating every millimeter of glass.
Do you ever do any work without a pen or just freehand?
I'm really uncomfortable working that way. I've discovered that I can handle the glass, but I'm much happier if there's a pattern. That way I'm able to relax. And when I'm glass bending, I have to find a way to relax. And usually just going through the basic bends does that for me.
Do you have a shop where you show what you've made, or you just show what you do online, or?
Pretty much just show online. I've shown at the Museum of Neon Art. I've been in a couple little galleries, but there's always a lot of the galleries I've run into. They go, well, if somebody inquires to, inquires of us to make them a sign. Do we get a part of the commission? And I'm going, here's the artwork, selling artwork. And then they want a cut of everything, and I'll give you a cut of the art that we're selling, but that other stuff, it gets kind of complicated. Plus, I mentioned, you mentioned that piece, how much it costs to produce it. Some of the pieces are very expensive. This piece had no input selected. This piece had, maybe 12 transformers, about $150 each, and then the big, aluminum cabinet. I forget what it cost to build the thing. The materials are much more expensive than doing a drawing or painting, something like that. So that's, so you're buying the you're really buying the technology and the hardware.
Have you had anybody interested in your teaching them?
Yes, I had a couple students. I've taught a number of people over the years. I take on 1 or 2 students at a time, and it's a 6 weeks, very intensive, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, bending. I put a person through, we bend like 250 pounds of glass. And even then, they just have, you just have the basics, you have the kind of the fundamentals. Like you can bend letters and stuff like that, and you can bomb apart. But it's really, it's a skill akin to brain surgery when it comes to, your hand movements and fine motor movements. So it's not something that's, it looks simple enough. You see somebody who knows what they're doing, the bending, it looks like, oh, you heat the glass, you bend it. Oh, you heat it, bend it, heat it. But it's very deceptive because it requires really, really fine coordination. You got to be really calm when you're bending. Can't be in a hurry. Can't be in a bad mood. It is the Zen of bending. Somebody asked me, I think it was her who was asking me about, I think Nicole was asking me about it, but that for me, that's my favorite thing is heating a piece of glass and making a nice bend. That just, especially like like a rainy morning, it's like rainy, kind of foggy outside, and I've got this heat, I've got the ribbon burn, I've got the other burn, and I'm just making little bends. Oh, that feels good. Oh, that feels good. It's a very simple process, but heating something that's solid, giving it a completely different shape, and then re-solidifying, is just really kind of an amazing process. It is. It's definitely a Zen activity. I became ambidextrous because I learned how to bend glass, so both my hands function. I never tried to train myself, but that's what happens. That's kind of like I can catch things with my left hand. I find my left hand going for things, falling off the table. There goes a piece of very valuable glass. Got it.